Chapter 3 of Episode 1, The Verdict. The courtroom is packed with journalists and spectators filling every available seat. Cade sits at the defendant's table, Jerry beside him. His once impeccable suit now looks rumpled and ill-fitting. Alexander Voss sits in the gallery, a subtle smirk playing on his lips.
In the case of United States versus Thorne, has the jury reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. On the count of corporate espionage, we find the defendant, Cade Thorne, guilty. On the count of theft of trade secrets, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of wire fraud, we find the defendant guilty.
The courtroom erupts in murmurs. Cameras flash as journalists rush to be the first to break the news. Cade's face falls as he turns to Jerry in disbelief.
This can't be happening. There has to be some mistake.
I'm sorry, Cade. We'll appeal, but it doesn't look good.
Order in the court. Cade Thorne, please rise for sentencing.
Cade stands on shaky legs, his world crumbling around him.
Cade Thorne, you have been found guilty of serious crimes that strike at the heart of fair competition and innovation in our tech industry. Your actions have not only damaged your competitors, but have shaken the public's trust in the entire sector. Taking into account the severity and scope of your crimes, I hereby sentence you to 15 years in federal prison for corporate espionage, theft of trade secrets, and wire fraud. Additionally, you are fined $10 million, and Thorne Innovations will be placed under court-appointed management pending further investigation.
The gavel strikes, sealing Cade's fate. As he's led away in handcuffs, he locks eyes with Alexander, who raises an eyebrow in mock sympathy.
Tough break, kid. Should have stuck to app development.
Outside the courthouse, a media frenzy awaits as Cade is led out in handcuffs. Reporters shout questions, cameras flash, and protesters hold signs reading, "Tech, Tyrant, and Justice for Innovation."
Mr. Thorne, do you have any comment on the verdict?
How do you respond to allegations that your entire career was built on stolen ideas?
Cade keeps his head down, letting Jerry field the questions.
My client maintains his innocence. We will be appealing this verdict and are confident that justice will prevail.
Cade, now in a prison jumpsuit, is led towards a waiting van. The gray fabric hangs loosely on his frame, a stark contrast to his usual tailored suits. Paparazzi cameras flash around him, capturing the fall of the once celebrated tech mogul. As the van doors close on Cade's resigned face, we see the last glimpse of the world he's leaving behind. A world of skyscrapers, luxury, and innovation, now replaced by steel bars and concrete walls. Chapter 4 of Episode 1, Behind Bars. Cade lies on a hard, narrow bunk, staring at the ceiling. The cell is cramped and dimly lit.
Prison. Not exactly the 5-star accommodations I was used to. No room service, no Egyptian cotton sheets. And the closest thing to a spa day is a lukewarm shower, if you're lucky.
Cade sits up, rubbing his face tiredly.
The first few weeks were a blur. Turns out my charm and wit didn't exactly translate to prison currency. Who knew?
In the prison cafeteria, Cade stands in line, tray in hand. He grimaces as a glob of unidentifiable food is plopped onto his tray.
The food? Let's just say it made airplane meals look like Michelin star cuisine. I once found something in my mashed potatoes that I swear winked at me.
As Cade moves along, a large, intimidating inmate, Brick, bumps into him deliberately.
Watch it, pretty boy.
Sure thing, Mount Rushmore.
Brick turns, looming over Cade.
What did you say?
I said sure thing, I'm more rushed for food.
Brick narrows his eyes but moves on. Cade exhales in relief.
Rule number 1, engage brain before mouth. Still working on that one.
In the prison yard, Cade is doing push-ups in a corner. A group of inmates approach.
Hey, tech boy. Heard you're good with numbers.
I dabble.
Good. You're going to help us with our accounting.
And by accounting, they meant cooking the books for their less-than-legal in-prison enterprises. Turns out, an MBA is pretty valuable behind bars.
Cade stands, brushing off his hands.
Sorry, gentlemen, I'm more of a legitimate business kind of guy. You know, the kind that doesn't involve shanks and cigarette currency.
The inmates exchange looks, stepping closer menacingly.
Remember what I said about engaging brain before mouth? Yeah.
Later, in the prison infirmary, Cade sits on an exam table, holding an ice pack to his eye.
I learned pretty quickly that in here, my fist needed to catch the checks my mouth is writing. Let's just say I became well acquainted with the lovely infirmary staff.
Mr. Thorne, we really must stop meeting like this.
What can I say, Doc? I'm a sucker for the ambiance.
Later that night, Cade lies on his bunk, tossing a makeshift ball against the wall. Suddenly, alarms blare throughout the prison. Shouts and crashes can be heard in the distance.
Lockdown! We have a situation! All prisoners return to your cells immediately!
Well, this can't be good.
In the prison corridor, chaos reigns as inmates riot, fighting guards and each other. Fires have broken out in several places. Cade cautiously makes his way through the mayhem, dodging flying objects and brawling inmates.
Note to self, next time, get incarcerated at a minimum security resort.
He ducks as a chair flies over his head, crashing into the wall behind him.
Freedom! Down with the system!
Yes, because nothing says freedom like burning down the building we're all trapped in. Brilliant plan, Einstein.
Cade spots a guard cornered by 3 inmates, clearly in trouble.
Help! Somebody help!
I'm definitely going to regret this.
Cade rushes towards the group, tackling one of the inmates. In the ensuing scuffle, he manages to help the guard break free.
Run! Get out of here!
As they turn to escape, Cade feels a sharp pain in his side. He looks down to see a makeshift knife protruding from his abdomen. The world starts to spin as he collapses to the ground.
Well, that's not good.
His vision blurs, the sounds of the riot fading away. The last thing he sees is a bright flash of light